which is based in the Leeuwkorp prison complex. So at first start, I was quite nervous at the thought of going into a school in the Leeuwkorp prison complex. And the first time that you drive into it, it is quite overwhelming as you see all the prisoners walking around in their orange overalls. But the school itself is actually on a lovely premises, and if you've been to Leeuwkorp, the fantastic thing about it is it's actually massive farmland. So just on the outskirts towards Sunning Hill and Lone Hill, there's actually a beautiful area where the school is. So there are 640 learners roughly from grade R through to grade 8. So grade 7 is where the last sort of all the classes start, and then they have an overflow class in grade 8, and they have 18 staff. So my partner, the principal of Sefakeng, is Lindy, and she unfortunately decided not to be here tonight. So as you can imagine, we've had quite a tough journey over the last year. But as with any journey, there's still an opportunity to learn things. So what I decided to do tonight was to share my 5 lessons. And I think just sitting here again tonight, I could probably add easily another 5 and probably another 10 if I spent 2 more minutes on it. So lesson number 1 was from the book and video from Art of Possibility. I'm not sure how many of you actually got to read the book or looked at the DVD that came in our first welcome pack. So many people for the last number of years have always recommended to me to read Art of Possibility, and I never got around to doing it until I came on the program. And I read it, and I read a lot of books, and I can honestly say this is by far my favorite book. And 2 of the big things that stuck out for me that I've taken into other areas of my life and very much so in my work context. But the first one is don't take yourself so seriously, which he regards as rule number 6. So often in different contexts, I just remind myself rule number 6 or remind people around me. I think in life things get so seriously, and we often think that the world is on, or maybe it's just me, but the world is on my shoulders, and you can sometimes think that single-handedly you are responsible for fixing something. So it's a helpful reminder not to take yourself so seriously. And the second big one from that book was learn to celebrate mistakes. So he speaks about it, when you make a mistake or make a failure, you have to raise your hands in the air and shout, "How fascinating!" And if you the illustration that he uses if you play a bad golf shot, how difficult it is to raise your hands and shout, "How fascinating!" Everything about us, when we speak about failure or mistakes, our body language sort of resists lifting your hands up. And I recommend and encourage you to try that when you make mistakes. But most importantly is the question that comes with it, and it's, what can I learn from this? The second lesson is that personal growth and development is a tough journey. And I think for all of us sitting around here who decided or recognized this program as a growth and development program, part of partnering with schools, I think we'll all recognize that it's a tough journey. And I think the part that makes it tough is that you learn things about yourself that you don't necessarily like. And again, you have a choice how you want to deal with that. So you can ignore them, move on, but it's often more tough to deal with them. But as the quote says, it's always worth it when you go through it. The third one, and it obviously speaks to the Time to Think program that we went through. So being and or having a thinking partner can be very powerful. I think that's, again, one of the real big lessons that I learned. I think in coming from a strategy consulting environment, I think it's easy to maybe come up with solutions or problem solve and brainstorm, but actually all you're trying to do is get your solution across. Just the thinking and around time that came with Time to Think, and just recognizing your role as a real thinking partner, helping someone who sits with the problem come up with a solution, is just so much more powerful. So the fourth one, and that speaks to a little bit more of my personal journey over the years. So when I joined the program, I was working for a strategy consulting firm, and at the end of last year, and no doubt this program played a big influence in making my decision, I left the firm that I was at to make a move into the education sector. And the journey that I'm at the moment is just this getting a deep understanding and appreciation that every child thinks perfectly. And I think if I look around at all the principals that sit here, the problems and challenges that you solve often seem insurmountable. But when you keep this thought of every child thinks perfectly in the front of your mind, and as so many of you do, it's just step by step, we get closer to real solutions. And then finally, and probably the biggest lesson, is that being a principal of a school is not rocket science. It is much more difficult than that. So I think and this one speaks to just a real appreciation for all the principals that are here in the program. Your passion and commitment is just, it's astounding. And I've been exposed to many different businesses and industries, and I think there's no more complex organization than a school. If you think of the complexity of your stakeholders, the pressures that you've got in terms of achievement and results that you're aiming for. And so, yeah, just real respect. And I think for those of you that really choose to lead in the spaces that you find yourselves, just huge respect for that. So thank you for all that I've learned from all of you.
I feel very privileged to have my 4 sons here with me today, because they often say to me, "Mom, what do you actually do?" And so they're here to see what I actually do. And to be honest, I'm sitting here and thinking, I actually do very little. Don't let Louise hear that, because she pays me to do very little. But I mean, it's the principals and the partners that are really doing all the work. And I just want to, please, if we can just give a big round of applause for amazing principals and amazing business leaders.